justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind.
Good afternoon. Welcome. This is the 3 to Tango podcast, which is a spinoff of the 476ers podcast, where we are talking about the last dance. 3 to Tango is a dance, and this will be the last one. So that's how I made this shit up in my head. We have Victor here. Victor, say hello.
Yo.
And we have my man Fred. Fred, say hello.
What's up?
All right. And everyone, hopefully you guys are in good spirits during the quarantine, I assume. We talked about some workout follies a moment ago, and it seems like all of us are healthy in relative health. And that's it. So let's get into it. So I want to talk about that. We're going to start off by talking about episode 3 somewhat. Now, episode 3 picks up. I guess you could say the main character of the episode is Dennis Rodman. And what I want to talk about is the theme of the episode, though. So what I wrote down as a theme for the episode, now hear me out, I wrote down the bullshit. And I noticed it said a few times in the episode, really twice. It said twice. The first time it said by, I can't remember. And at the end, Dennis Rodman is working out and he says it, the bullshit. And it becomes a double entendre for the episode. The bullshit, you know what I mean? This shit we're dealing with the Bulls and the bullshit. What did you guys think so far? What did you guys have as far as themes, I guess? What is your breakdown? I mean, as far as the bullshit is concerned, that seems like what is happening throughout the episode. We're just seeing a lot of bullshit. If it's not Dennis Rodman and the bullshit he had to deal with in his life, it's just bullshit going on with the team. Even they mentioned later on in the episode the Scotty migraine thing, which is not bullshit, but it's like the way that they almost talk about it is like you can almost see it in MJ's face, even though MJ would never say it because he's trying to be a good teammate. You could see in his mind it's like, this is some bullshit. And what did you guys think, Vic? What did you think the theme of the episode was?
I think, at least to a certain extent, Rodman, like his whole persona, his whole career, it's kind of like a microcosm of everything happening to the Bulls. Right? Like it's not just he's a great player. He's also kind of egotistical, kind of unsure of himself, kind of insecure, kind of not comfortable with the position he has as being a public figure and a famous athlete. We're like, especially in the 90s where social media and access to these athletes are different, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes the whole time. And he says over and over and over again, and he literally has said it his whole life, people just don't get me. People just don't get me. And it's like, there's more to it than just what's the surface. As fans saying like, is this another championship run? And for them, it's like, are we even going to get the whole roster to show up every day just to practice?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that even part of along that theme of bullshit, the team is also just dealing with bullshit that we can't even imagine a championship team dealing with at this time. Fred, what did you think about the theme of the episode, or what did you think the theme of the episode was, I guess?
Nah, man, I agree with you. It was just like you just seen a lot of like unnecessary stuff going on. And, and Rodman, I think they all credited Rodman with being the great player. And like, they said he was kind of the especially while Pippen was out, like kind of like that catalyst. And he was able to like turn it up and, kind of bring the team, and, help them, win. But the thing is, it was like so much unnecessary bullcrap that they were going through. Like, I mean, if you look at, what everything Rodman was doing, it was just like he was a wrench. You know what I mean? And it was, it's hard to have someone like Jordan who was insane about, you saw his work ethic. And then when you had someone who you weren't sure if he was going to bring it every night. But you do see resolve though. You see like they still are able to make it work, right? Yeah. And I think that's where you kind of see, you do see, and I know we kind of want to say Phil Jackson for a little later, but you do see kind of like a parallel of the way Phil Jackson runs his team
Mm-hmm.
and the way Kraus runs the whole organization.
Mm.
And it's, but that's a lot of bullcrap too going on. So
Yeah.
I really, that theme, you kind of hit the nail on the head with that one, because but I didn't know how it did shed light on how Rodman did take his craft serious
Mm-hmm.
when it came down to it. Like, he's talking about angles, he's looking at film. I never knew that he did that. I just thought, it was his natural ability, which, I mean, it is, but then he would hone into it. So, much respect for him. But yeah, there was a lot of crap going on that season.
Yeah. Vic, why don't you jump in, talk about that, because I thought that's a great point, Fred, about how Dennis is almost obsessive about rebounding. Like, you would just never. He's obsessive about rebounding, like an offensive player is obsessive about adding to his offensive game almost. Vic, what did you think about that?
It sounded a lot like Ben Wallace. If you ever get a chance to, like, it might be on YouTube or something, talking about angles and paying attention to, like, who's shooting the ball and, like, tendencies. If so-and-so is shooting the ball from the corner, he's more likely to hit front rim, so I'm going to stand over here, versus a guy who usually goes long, I'm going to get on the other side of the rim. But a lot of that is understanding. And then, like, when you play long enough, you kind of figure that out too. And I don't know if this is true or not, if this is just hyperbole because he never explicitly said, I watched people to see how they miss. That was so, like, people kind of put together as an assumption. But like, again, these are guys that were dominant rebounders and only really cared about doing certain things.
Yeah.
At least in the pros. Ironically enough, though, both of them went to a Division II school and averaged, like, almost 30 points a game in Division II. Him and Ben Wallace. But anyway, but it just sounded like a lot of the great rebounders, like understanding that, and even over the flow of a game, it can change from game to game. If a guy's standing in front of the rim a lot, I'm gonna stand in front of the rim than versus getting on the other side of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point about Ben Wallace. I mean, but both of these guys are elite defensive players, defensive player of the year candidates, and elite rebounders. And I think it's really interesting to see that. So there's a couple details in here that are fancy. So let's talk a little bit more about the bullshit. So there's all this bullshit going on. Finally, at one point, I mean, we get no Scottie Pippen or whatever for however many games. And then there's the Pacers game, which is about 16 games into the season. Now, up until this point, I think it's kind of interesting because they make it seem like Rodman is shitting the bed this whole time. So I went on and I did the math. I did some quick math and counted up the first 17 games in my head because Brian is an elite mathematician. And Rodman was essentially averaging 5 and 14 up until that Pacers game. He's really on his career averages, but this is important to know to basketball fans, especially ones that are casual basketball fans, what it's like when a guy can have the numbers but not have the mentality, not have the aggressiveness, like that killer instinct, the nature that is necessary to win a game. He could still show up and just grab the numbers. When you're an elite rebounder like that, or even an elite scorer, you'll hear that idea all the time. This guy could roll out of bed and give me 20. And it's kind of like that. Now, this leads up to one of my favorite moments of this episode, and probably I guess I have this under one of my my favorite allegory or moment of the episode here is when Dennis talks about did he bring the cigar to no, he goes to Jordan's hotel room. He goes to Jordan's hotel room and asks him for a cigar, right? And the best part about this is 20 years later, they are separate off camera, and Rodman says, I never came out and apologized, but I think he knew me asking for that cigar was like an olive branch. And then cut to Jordan. Yeah, he never apologized, but I knew him asking for that cigar was an olive branch. And it's like, that's one of my favorite moments or allegories. That is exactly what leadership is kind of from both of their standpoints, honestly. You know what I mean? These two alphas kind of coming together, and Rodman apologizing for getting kicked out of the game essentially by doing this. What did you guys think about that? Was that one of your favorite moments, or did you have another moment you wanted to highlight, Fred?
Yeah, no, yeah, that was one of my highlights. But I did appreciate that because, you could probably tell that prior to that there was like a coldness to the relationship. And I think we've all been there, like if you're either with like a spouse or something like that, you get an argument and then you just sometimes you don't even say sorry, you just say, "Yo, you want something to eat?" or something that. And they're like, "Yeah, I'm down." You know what I mean? And that and I think that's basically the way that they were gonna do it. Nobody was gonna apologize. They didn't need the drama, have like a long, conversation. So I really appreciated that. But when you just see how like Rodman is just like almost like a little kid, I mean that has been shed. Like he's been very vulnerable in the interview, so I kind of knew that already. But just the fact that kind of the way he saw Jordan, just another man, and he's like kind of like he's like almost like my dad almost, and like you don't want to disappoint your dad, and sometimes just your dad being disappointed is enough for you to like kind of change, your behavior. So, and then Jordan knowing like he saw value in him was cool. I think that was one of my favorite moments. But I think that just going back to what I was talking about earlier, just seeing like Rodman, like watching TV. I mean, like watching a game and just taking notes. I never would have known that my man did that. You know what I mean? I just thought it was just natural, type of stuff going on. So that kind of shed the light on me, light on that. And the one thing I used to get frustrated, I used to get mad, like, when I was playing football at Temple or whatever, even in high school, is like, you would have some of these guys who would do that type of behavior. You know what I mean? Like stay up till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and then be fine the whole game. And I'm like, if I did that, I'd be like a mess. And the fact that he could just do that and then just start running miles on the treadmill was insane. And it just showed how crazy that I guarantee Jim Paxson wasn't doing that. So, or Steve Kerr, you know what I mean?
They were getting sizable meals.
So, those guys, were probably going to bed at like 9 o'clock, 9:30. So just I love the characters. I think that's what I love about basketball is that you're able to like kind of you have these characters and they all play roles on the team, right? And that's kind of when I was a kid. That's why it wasn't like no one told me that like white guys could shoot. I just put it together because I grew up with Paxson, back in threes and making them curve, being that like I never saw him dunk in my life, but they were gonna sink that three. So just having those, that's what I love about basketball. And you can't really do that in football. In baseball, there is, but like just. That's what I love about basketball. And, just this type of, like, all the different characters in the story is great.
Great. Vic, what did you think about that allegory, or did you have any other moments you wanted to highlight?
So, but besides the vacation, it's the most important part of the episode. Because, as you said, he was hitting his averages, but he needed more. He needed to do more. Because Scotty was out. So we didn't need your average. We needed more than that. And as it's come up over and over and over again, Dennis was not an extrovert, right? That was his alter ego. And that's when he felt important in front of a big crowd, so he would play to the crowd. So him coming to Michael, and like Michael said in episode 3, Dennis never came to my room. So him having the humility to walk to his room, knock on his door, and say, "Hey, you got an extra cigar? And even though this is uncomfortable for me, I'm going to sit down and hang out with you and whoever else is in here." Was that olive branch, and it was that sacrifice. And like Fred says, sometimes hashing it out is not actually worth it.
Yeah.
Right? Let's just agree to drop it, and we'll move on from here. We
Mhm.
both know what we got to do.
Mhm.
But then also the idea where they talk about a little bit later is that like he became the model citizen until Scotty came back.
Yeah.
Because he liked that role. He liked being the second best player, the
Mhm.
guy Jordan had to lean on.
Mhm.
And then how things changed when Scotty came back.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost immediately things change. And to the point. So one thing I do want to mention here is they go and smoke cigars, and this is in the middle of a season. I don't think any NBA player is doing that today. Just gonna go smoke a cigar after a game. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? So real quick before we move on to Fred's point about white guys that shoot. Dennis Rodman. So if you go to a basketball court, right? Let's say we go play basketball. Let's say we go to Fox Chase. Is Dennis Rodman the dude that's wearing jean shorts and high top black Air Force Ones? Is that a yes or a no, Vic? Yes. A wife beater. The wife beater might have a hole in it. Maybe. It's a little dingy.
All right, so if I'm picturing Dennis, if that's the start of the outfit, he got jean shorts, black forces. If he has to have a beater, then he got a long ass leather jacket, like Highlander leather jacket on.
So he's now crazy. Okay.
He got a choker necklace.
Uh-huh.
And his hair is all types of colors.
Okay. Fred, what do you think? What do you think you're going to see if you show up at a basketball court? Which character is Dennis Rodman?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say jean shorts. I would say jeans, just full on.
Oh, jeans. He's gonna have full jeans on. Okay,
right. He's one of those people that went to didn't plan accordingly. Like he knew he was gonna play basketball, but he just didn't. He decided to stay with the same outfit he used, throughout his day. So he's using, I wouldn't say black forces. I would give you some sort of like K-Swiss, right? Like a nice pair of like kind of like jacked up K-Swisses that
maybe a pair of Diodoras, a throwback. You know what I mean?
Maybe, and jeans, and then he's a really really loose tank top, right? Not a beater
for sure.
It's like a tie dye.
If it swings one way or the other, you see a nipple.
Yeah, exactly. Like it really is just a string. It's like a thong for a man on the upper part of his body. And then he might be wearing some sort of like beret.
Yeah. Oh, a beret. Okay.
Yeah. And the thing is, I've seen this man when I used to play, when I used to go to LA Fitness in Abington.
Yeah.
So that there is that human being.
Oh, no question. That's why I mentioned it, because this exact person has blocked me at least 4 or 5 different times to start a game. You know what I mean? That I go do my little drop step, and his long arms and his shitty wife beater, his wife beater blows like a cape in the wind. Yeah. And he eats my shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I got to figure out other ways. And then he gets the rebound. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is a ferocious rebounder. Black K-Swiss or Sauconys maybe. Maybe some dicked up New Balances that are all types of different, like a pair of tan New Balances maybe.
Yeah.
That is the Dennis Rodman character. At
Cortezes maybe.
Oh, a pair of Cortezes maybe. I'm going with jean shorts. You guys said long jeans. I'm going jean shorts because jean shorts, I'm not saying that this man is dressed ready with jean shorts. I'm saying he would have wore jean shorts if it was February, just like he would have wore jean shorts like when it was July.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Yeah. So that's him. Okay. I'm glad we're here. So a couple other moments I wanted to point out before we get off of favorite moments, at least, or unless you guys have any other ones. So they introduced Doug Collins, and we get a classic, just fucking goosebumps. Doug Collins is telling the story of MJ coming up to him saying, "Relax, coach. I'm not going to let you lose your first game." And he scores 14 straight to end the game or whatever it is. I mean, that's up there. Ron Harper, by the way, is the other guy who says, "Fuck this bullshit." He says that in regards to the last play during the shot when Greg Elo was guarding him. And Ron Harper, who's 100% right, was an elite defender in his time, should have been guarding him, but whatever. Were there any other, I guess, favorite moments or allegories or any surprising details that came out in this episode that you didn't know about that surprised you, Vic?
Um, so I'm gonna assume that we can talk about the vacation next.
Yeah, I mean, vacation. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, because vacation technically happens episode 4, but we can touch on it if you want to touch on it now. It's fine.
So I don't remember what episode it is then. So and then it might be episode 4, but let's just talk about it now anyway.
Yeah.
Rodman says, I may have done this, I may have done that, but talk to anybody, and they'll tell you I was a good teammate.
Oh, that's at the beginning of episode 3, I think, actually.
Okay, well,
when he says that.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if you ask his Spurs teammates, so they're going to say how great of a teammate he actually was.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's when he literally fucking loses his mind.
Yeah.
And they trade for Rodman for fucking Will Perdue.
Yeah. Who
was like their third center.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bill Weddington's playing over Will Perdue.
Mm-hmm.
So, like future Hall of Famer Dennis Rodman, you get this fucking guy.
Yeah.
And they were happy to take the fucking trade.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would agree with that statement that he was always a good teammate because he definitely checked out. And I'm not saying that there wasn't reasons for it, and maybe if there was more help lined up, then maybe he wouldn't have to go through what he went through. But I don't know. And this is where I would like to at least start to bring up the conversation between Rodman and Horace Grant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because besides Tony Kukoc, Horace Grant is like the forgotten character here, where he was the third guy on the first three-peat, and he was drafted by the Bulls when they were trash. He was in the same draft as Scottie. We're not trash, but they weren't winning championships yet. So he had to go through the fucking fire of getting roasted by Jordan in practice and like figure out whether or not I can even do this shit anymore playing with this guy. Where by the time Rodman gets to the Bulls, they kind of know to leave him alone because otherwise who knows what the fuck he'll do, But I don't know. I honestly think that Horace Grant is a better overall player
than a better overall than the Hall of Famer Dennis Rodman.
Correct.
Okay, I like that. I like that shit. Throwing hot ones here. You know what I mean? He's pitching fastballs. I'm fine with that. Listen, I think Horace Grant. I would alter that and say Horace Grant was a more complete player. I think it's surprising that, listen, when Dennis Rodman went to the Hall of Fame, I was as surprised as when fucking Mitch Richmond went to the Hall of Fame. Once these two names entered the Hall, I knew that anything was possible. KG voice, anything is possible. That's essentially when I said, well, Kyle Lowry's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Or Fred, we went to high school with a Hall of Famer. And Lowry deserves it, but it's just the point that I never thought Dennis Rodman was a Hall of Famer. I understood he was a fantastic rebounder and one of the best defenders of all time. If you move Dennis Rodman to if you move Dennis Rodman to the worst team in the NBA, is the worst team in the NBA still not the worst team in the NBA?
No, they might be worse.
They might be worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because he won't show the fuck up.
Yeah. He needs a vacation.
Give me 1 second. All right. So look, for career averages, right? Let's just say for regular season, and understanding that Horace played 4 more years. All right, but points per game, right? Horace is about 11. Rodman's about 7, right? Total rebounds, Horace is about 8. Rodman is about 13, right? That's the biggest difference in it. But Horace has more assists. But the totals are kind of staggering. He did play 4 more years, but he over doubles him in points.
Yeah.
Horace doubles Rodman in points and is only 2,000 rebounds short of him. He does play 4 more years. So let's just say, right, I want to see the playoff per game, right? Playoff per game. Horace is still at 11. Dennis drops to 6 points per game. Rebounds, though, right, which is supposed to be Dennis's thing. Horace Grant averages almost 8.6 rebounds a game. Dennis Rodman, for his playoff average, 9.9.
Yeah, that's not good enough. That's a great point. That's it. You got a fair argument. I think my only argument against your argument is the Dennis Rodman chasing magic. Dennis Rodman, you just say, Dennis, go hound this person for a while. and you kind of don't have to necessarily worry about that person necessarily for the rest of the game. I think that is what makes Dennis so valuable, especially on the second three-peat. I'll never quite understand the Horace thing, what happens there, and I think I watched. So today I watched the episode 5 and 6 stuff because again, last night, listen, ESPN promised me that they were going to tell us what the fuck was in episode 5 and 6. Okay,
They did.
And I waited 5 minutes. And I watched Jackie Mack. God bless her soul. I love Jackie McMullen, and I respect Michael Wilbon. I watched them talk for 5 minutes, and I said, I'm going to sleep now because you promised to show me this shit, and you haven't showed it to me. So I passed out. Then today I watched it, and it looks like we're going to see some of whatever happens here between whatever leads to Horace's exodus, I guess you would say, to the Magic.
All right, give me 1 second.
Okay.
So I need to say one more thing.
Oh, you still want to prove your point here? Okay.
I gotta say one more thing. So the Rodman being switchable on defense, that's young Rodman.
That's fair.
If you watch the late 90s Bulls, Rodman is not guarding any guards.
That's fair.
And that's with playing with a bunch of other guys doing a lot of other heavy lifting. Where when he has to be a third best player, and it's not physically he couldn't do it. As mentally, I don't know if he can be locked in like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, Horace, though, with the whole leaving the Bulls. So Horace and Scottie come in at the same time, and they become really, really good friends, right? In particular because it's kind of like a us versus him and him being Jordan kind of thing, because he was roasting them in practice. And he made it his objective to come at young guys to see if they were ready to help his team. Over the course of the years, in particular as Scottie got better and became closer to Jordan, Horace felt a little bit more and more betrayed. Like there's a story, I read a story where literally Scottie's cat or a pet had died. So Scottie said, I can't come to practice today. My pet is dead. I need a day. Then the next call is Horace. Scottie's pet died. I need to be with him in this moment. Like that's how close they were. And now, of course, it didn't fly. You know, they were like, get your asses here to practice. But that's how close they were.
Yeah.
So then as that relationship starts to change, he starts hanging on Michael. His behavior starts to become more Michael's behavior on and off the floor. They don't get along as much.
Okay.
So they went with like hanging out with each other every single day, like, you know, breakfast, lunch and dinner, practice, before practice, whatever, to kind of distancing themselves. And then with all the turmoil of that last season, because remember, his last season with the Bulls, that would be 93. Remember, that's when a lot of the gambling stuff is coming out.
Yeah.
Right? And Horace is like, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah, okay.
But also, Jerry Krause doesn't want to pay people.
Yeah, so he doesn't want to pay Horace at this point either.
So there's a lot of things going on there, but a lot of it, though, was like Horace felt like the relationships he built were not as strong, so he didn't have a lot to lose if he left.
Okay, so just more of that bullshit. Like I said, the theme of this episode is just more of that bullshit. Fred, why don't you go ahead? Favorite moments or allegories? Do you want to refute Victor's shitting on Dennis Rodman, which is fine with me here?
No, I will. Actually, I want to get on that train because I think one of the things is we understand, you know, he thinks that he's a good teammate. And I think what happens is, you know, with I kind of like the stigma of like mental health and stuff like that. You know, I think people can sometimes get a pass because you're like, oh, you know, that sucks. You know, like, you know, yeah, there's nothing you could do about it. But in the fact of the matter, he was a bad teammate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, you can't just like disappear.
Yeah.
Right. Or even ask for a vacation.
In the middle of the basketball season.
Yeah. It just took. He had like no. You know, that he was living in this world that like you can't. Most people can't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you literally play basketball for a living. And I get it. You know, he has these issues, but imagine having issues and having to work at Walmart. You know what I mean? You're literally playing basketball and getting paid tons of money to do it. So, yeah, he thinks he was a good teammate, but I don't think he was at all. you know, he might have got along with guys, but that doesn't mean, you know, like, you know, one of the worst things you can do, and I think it sucks to be on a team that has somebody like that, but having someone who just gets to do whatever they want because they're good. And I understand in the pros, you know, they get a lot of your best players kind of get away with everything.
Yeah.
But seeing that, man, like I couldn't imagine being on that team and just saying, oh, so my man is just gonna like disappear and then just play like nothing happened.
Yeah.
Like it's a completely different ball game when you get in the pros. It's all about winning. Everyone's grown, so you know it just didn't seem like that. I think that would have been really annoying on my end. So yeah,
Did you have? I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you go.
Did you have any other allegories from this episode that you wanted to touch base on that kind of stood out to you?
No, not right now. Not like
okay. Yeah. All right. I mean, as somebody who is a proponent for mental health here, I'm going to stand up for Dennis Rodman. How about that? Fuck y'all. And fuck Horace Grant. That's how I feel. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's not about, you know, and one point I do want to make, though, and this is something I learned early on, kind of looking into my own mental health, is the idea that your mental health doesn't give you an excuse to be a dick. You know what I mean? So that's important here in terms of Dennis Rodman conversation. But when it comes to mental health, I don't think things like money and stuff like that just becomes secondhand. That idea, I don't even know how to explain it. It doesn't even exist. It doesn't exist. You don't think about what you have to lose anymore. You know what I mean? You're not really thinking that way. But to your point, what I do want to argue is this. Dennis needed very clearly a certain type of alpha person to look up to. And this might be shitting on David Robinson a little bit, but, you know, maybe this is the point about why David Robinson never wins, doesn't win until Tim Duncan, someone he can almost follow, actually comes along. But before that, yeah, Isaiah speaks glowingly of Dennis Rodman because he needed Isaiah there. And then they get to the Bulls, and even through this episode before the vacation, they're laughing and joking. They're not shitting on Rodman for it. I think they do appreciate what he brought to the table. But Vic, I wanted you to look up Karl Malone's stats to help your argument, or hurt it. I don't know. What does Karl Malone do in the '98 finals?
Yeah, and you are correct. That is, the Admiral was too nice of a guy. But in the 1998 finals, Karl Malone averaged 25 points, 10.5 rebounds, almost 4 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block.
What was his shooting average, if you don't mind taking a look at that?
His field goal percentage was 50%.
Okay, so Dennis Rodman doesn't do anything to slow down Karl Malone. Credit to Karl Malone, though. I don't think a lot of people have done a lot to slow down Karl Malone. But to your point, I think, I guess Dennis kind of provides an edge that maybe Horace. Listen, it doesn't matter because it's not necessarily about Horace, right? It's about, well, who are we going to replace because Horace is gone now?
And Dennis didn't need to shoot the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Dennis less maintenance.
Yep.
And what we're going to find out later is, I mean, MJ seems 100% certain that it's Horace who is leaking the info that leads to this book written. Horace completely denies that. I don't want to jump too much into it, but maybe Horace is a shitty teammate. I don't know. I'm trying to defend my man Dennis. So,
yo, you know what? If you get a chance, Horace Grant did an interview on Hot 97 years ago. I can't remember I think if it might have been leading into All-Star Weekend or whatever, and he kind of gives, like, you kind of see an attitude that he had, and he's not like really. To me, it seemed like he didn't really glorify anybody on the Bulls like that. You know what I mean? Horace is his own man. You know what I mean? He's not one of those guys who's like. I think he talked about how great Jordan was, but he wasn't on his, like, you know what I mean? Like, I did get a vibe from him that was like sort of cold.
Yeah. My dad used to always make jokes about Horace hating MJ, you know what I mean? And he, you know, it was obviously very much into basketball at that time. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the same interview when Horace says that MJ would find a way to neutralize Shaq if they played the 0-1 Lakers. I think that's the same
No,
interview.
that was on the Bill Simmons podcast.
Was it on the Simmons podcast? I
Yeah,
thought that
it was during an
okay,
All-Star. It was during the All-Star weekend when they were doing
the
video
table thing.
podcast. Yeah, but
Okay.
I would say this though about most of the All-Star players that play with, or just players that play with Jordan, period. But in particular, the ones that are All-Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what year it is, what month it is, the relationship with Jordan at the time, they say things, they put their foots in their mouth, and then the next time they talk, they'll say something else.
Walk it back, yeah.
Scotty said at one point, and this is on TV, you can look this up, that LeBron James is a better player than Michael Jordan.
Yep.
He said Michael's the greatest scorer, but LeBron's the best player.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's the infamous story when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar handwrites Scotty a letter and be like, hey, just in case you forgot, I lead the NBA in all-time scoring.
Mm-hmm.
But then, comes out a couple months later and says Michael's the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of that with those guys is the relationship they have, and they know because of the psychopath that Michael is, saying that would hurt him.
Yeah, would piss or not hurt him, but it would piss him off.
Same difference. He gets pissed because he's hurt.
Yeah.
So like a lot of that, like I can't take it. I can't take it because as like being truth. Yeah, because it kind of like, and a lot of it is too is their egos too.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of that with Scotty and Horace and any of these guys is that they also feel like they never got enough credit.
Yeah.
But then you have the interview like you were talking about with Bill Simmons where he was like, oh, why would we beat Shaq? Because of Michael.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Michael would ever be guarding him one-on-one, but it's just saying like he's just the difference.
Yeah, going to find a way to neutralize him. I think maybe there's something here. I don't know, a little string theory possibly on Pippen saying that about LeBron. Is Pippen essentially understanding that he is LeBron before LeBron? Maybe he sees something there. I don't know. Wanted to give him that credit, but he 100% said LeBron was the greatest. I didn't think he walked it back. I thought he reinforced it later on. I thought he doubled down on it. But you might be right.
No, he's walked it back a bunch.
A couple of things I want to point out real quick. So Game 5 against the Cavs, MJ, 44 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. He goes 17 for 32 that game. That is an elimination game. That's fucking incredible numbers. Mm-hmm. But, by comparison, Kawhi just eliminated us, and I don't want to reopen wounds that are still bleeding, but, we're here. And he eliminates us in an all-time great game, and it's one of the worst shooting performances you'll ever see. Statistically at least, averages 48-6 for the series. Pippen 13-10 that game, 15-8 for the series. All right, so to the people who think Pippen is the fucking greatest, not to shit on Pippen, I don't want to shit on. It's not what this podcast is about. Against the Pistons, this is gonna shit on Pippen though. Against the Pistons, this is the series. Essentially, the final series, which will lead us to Jordan rules, which we'll talk about briefly. MJ averages 37-6, 30.7 rebounds and 6 assists that series. Pippen, 9.7 rebounds for the series. So whether he had that fucking migraine or not in Game 7, it didn't make a fucking difference. He wasn't playing well. That migraine most likely had to do with stress. As someone who gets migraines as well, I'm a fucking mess. Listen, I'm Mr. Glass, so I know what precipitates all of these things. As someone who gets migraines, yeah, stress can cause it. I can only assume that's the case. So the last thing that's important that I just want to mention here. Oh, actually, one thing I did want to point out that I found interesting about the MJ, about the MJ Dennis Rodman dynamic is it, especially with the way they pointed this episode, the Bad Boys versus the Bulls, Dennis guarding MJ certain possessions and stuff like that, kind of sort of reminded me of the Kobe Ron Artest dynamic, which I'm sure we'll see maybe talked about when they do his documentary, where that literally the season before, Kobe and Ron are almost getting to a little scuffle, and then the following season they're like best teammates. You know what I mean? Kobe loves how Ron is, and Ron loves Kobe, and Ron obviously, almost like a new age Dennis Rodman kind of. Which also would lead me to think that Dennis would be a little bit more successful now, just because there's more of an understanding. I mean, you can even tell the coverage of Dennis Rodman back then is like, well, this fucking guy's a lunatic. You know what I mean? Whereas I think now people understand there's nuance, especially to mental health, and how he's covered maybe would have been different. Maybe it helps him. I don't know. and the Jordan rules. That's the original Bounty Gate. You know what I mean? We just saw the Saints. I mean, you know, I don't know, 5 years ago, the Saints essentially lose their coach for a year, give up draft picks and all this shit. And Jordan rules is kind of the original Bounty Gate. Now, the difference is they're not paying players to foul the shit out of Jordan. The players are voluntarily doing it for free. And we will never see that again. I just want to point that out. You will never see Jordan rules again. You know what I mean? There was always a very strict way to defend LeBron. Everyone always knew how to defend it. Don't let him drive. Crowd the lane. It was simple. The MJ thing, though, because of the way MJ was sliced to the lane, and I'm going to make this crazy comparison. This sounds completely insane. But I don't know if you remember, like last year, I used to talk about how Markelle was better at driving to the rim than Ben Simmons was, Vic. And it was because Markelle could slice in, just because of his frame being slighter, was able to kind of find that gap, slice in, and finish at the rim. Whereas Ben always seemed like if he didn't have a clear opening, he needed to find some weird angle he couldn't get to. And it's kind of the same here with LeBron and MJ, except it's not the same because it's LeBron and MJ. But the way MJ was, the Jordan rules, and they explained it in the doc. I didn't write them down, but I mean, it's incredible to hear because for a long time, they used to deny the Jordan rules, if I'm not mistaken. The Pistons, the players themselves, deny that the Jordan rules exist. In fact,
Correct.
in their documentary, they deny it. You know what I mean? They deny that that's even a fucking thing.
Right.
And here we go. The assistant coach says these are the Jordan rules. What did you think about that, Vic?
There's so much to talk about it, and some of it we need to talk about after when we talk about the actual book called The Jordan Rules, when we talk about episode 4. But your point about the ability to drive difference between like a player like Michael and Markelle versus LeBron and Ben, that size and ball handling. So because they're smaller guys with quicker hands and quicker feet, they can get to the lane without somebody plucking them. Where like a Giannis, a Ben, a LeBron, they're bigger, taller guys, you can get your hands on the ball. So they be more methodical about how they use their body more versus just quickness.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So the guy who came up with the rules is Brendan Malone. He was assistant coach for the Pistons at the time. However, he knew Jordan as a 17-year-old teenager. Because as he's getting recruited by UNC, they send him to 5-star camp here in Pittsburgh, or not here in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. And that was like the Adidas camp, the Nike camp of his day.
Okay.
Because Dean Smith wants to see, is this kid actually this good? Or he's just good because he's better than all the North Carolina guys, right? Now, some say that Dean Smith really didn't want him to go because he didn't want other people to see how good he was. But Roy Williams, who was an intern at the time, actually gets him to go.
Okay.
While he's there, Brendan Malone is his coach for that summer. So he knows Jordan very, very, very well.
Wow. Okay.
So him getting hired by the Pistons partly because he knew Jordan so well. So it was today's game, you send everything to the boundaries, the sidelines on the perimeter. You don't want guards getting to the middle. But then you did. Because the objective was we're going to fuck his ass up. And hopefully that takes his heart. And then he will stop coming.
Yeah.
So as Brendan Malone said, we're going to send him to the elbow, meaning to the middle, and then double team him with a big. And if he went up, he got hit.
Yeah.
Right? He explains it really in 3 sentences, but he leaves out the part that they foul the shit out of him. If he gets in the air.
Yeah. I mean, he says it in a very coachy way. You know what I mean?
Well, no. He's asked by the documentarian. And if he takes a shot?
If he gets there, yeah.
And then he goes, well, then you put him down.
Yeah, you put him down.
He doesn't give that information up in the beginning, though.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. It was very well thought out, and it was very specific towards his skill set. They knew if he went right, he was more likely to go all the way to the lane. They forced him left to try and get him to pull jump shots. And if he got in the lane and took a shot, he got hit. Whether it was a jump shot, a floater, runner, layup, dunk, it didn't matter.
Yeah. Fred, what did you think about that?
That was amazing, bro.
Yeah.
Like that violence is just like amazing. And I like
a football player, everybody.
like I remember like I'm watching it and like you know how like you always imagine you're like top 5, and I'm like there's no statistical reason why I would want Bill Laimbeer on my team, but I want Bill Laimbeer on my team.
For sure.
Like, is there any other person, right, that looks that evil? Like in the NBA, like Bill Laimbeer looks like an evil, like mean-spirited person, and I think he was, right? So like I would want that, man. Like just like I guess like to know what you needed to win, and they knew what they needed to win, and they did it. It was by any means necessary, and I seeing that, I was like, dang, man, like it's something about that type of craziness that kind of made the NBA like awesome to watch during that time. Like you just seeing people get like knocked out, just like choked out, like with that when Kareem socked that dude that one time. Yo, that's amazing. Like you don't see that no more. Like that was like a one-hitter quitter. My man like lost his legs.
Yeah.
Everything now is just like like a lot of posturing and like like getting in people's faces and whatnot.
Yeah.
And missing. Like I don't know what it was in the 90s how they connected.
Yeah.
Because nowadays they don't connect at all. So that was just kind of my little demented view of things. But you do respect what like the fact the fact of knowing what you need to do to beat that team that's been stealing from you. Yeah. And it was just they played with fire. Fire with fire. Like they hit the gym. It was just like, and he was able to influence all those guys, and nobody wants to let him down. And and the thing is that's what I think. Like I think when people think about, when from the outside looking in, people use the term, this guy makes other guys better, right? I don't think they think about the mentality in the back end, right? I think they more think about what they see on the court, like, he involves people more. Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people think. And I mean, I feel like at least I did to an extent, because like you really, not until now do we get like a lot of insight into what things are going on. Yeah. So seeing how Jordan was almost like this person that nobody wanted to disappoint. He was psychotic. He created a standard that everyone had to live up to. And, it was contagious. Whether or not you hated him for it, you knew that you were going to bring it to the table. And so he was able to elevate all the players, on his team to do that. And it looked like everyone fell in line, where I don't know if you're really going to be able to get, if there's that type of leadership now. Again, I'm not even in with these dudes, in regards to what goes behind the locker room. But it just seems like there's a lot more stuff that these guys are involved in now that kind of keeps them away from working with each other. They're like, they'll go to different places, the West Coast, because now everything's like a hustle. Yeah, like they're able to have their hands in so much more, and which I don't even blame them. But back in that day, it just seemed like it was like more basketball oriented. Yeah, you weren't going to see MJ fly out to work with Magic necessarily in LA. You know what I mean? Right. But I want you to hold on to that, because we're going to come back to exactly what you're talking about in episode 4, which is after the Jordan rules. Essentially what takes place. The only last thing I want to say about this episode essentially is in regards to the Jordan rules. I found it interesting, the fear of allowing him to go baseline, which is an art that is lost in today's NBA. Is just not, I guess it's not necessarily, maybe it's not efficient, I don't know, but MJ was a master of going baseline. You know what I mean? There are so many just highlights of him going baseline and doing some shit. I mean, capped off by the famous one against the Knicks, the run under the basket, past the basket, fake, come back on John Starks, and then finish.
On Patrick Ewing.
Yeah, on Patrick Ewing. You just that art of going baseline doesn't exist. I think because, I mean, let's be honest, if you're going baseline, you're putting yourself in danger. You've essentially cut off the majority of the court, and there's only one direction you're going to go. But when you're the greatest basketball player of all time, the direction you're going to go is to get a bucket, and there's nothing anyone can do about that. So yeah, that was the only last detail I had about that episode. Vic, did you have anything you wanted to top off this episode with?
No, just a quick thing about baseline. So in the NBA, you're not going baseline anymore because you're going to take the corner three, right? Which is, besides a layup and a free throw, the most valuable shot in the game. Now, if you're an elite finisher, in particular at the lower levels, you want the baseline, right? Giving up baseline defensively is a cardinal sin, right? So if you are MJ, Dominique Wilkins, young Ron Harper, Vince Carter, T-Mac, baseline is where you do your most crazy stuff. Like you said, the dunk on Patrick Ewing, McGrady dunking on Sean Bradley when he was on Dallas and the Rockets. All that comes in that that slot baseline area. But now it's just like you don't have a lot of those wings that are driving or taking jump shots. But yeah, I mean, now that episode, yeah, I mean, I think the episode was kind of weak, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. I not a.
Yo. Yo. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhymes that are coming from my mind. Used to come